All right, the Texans just made the pick that they got from the Browns. It is inside linebacker from Mississippi State, Benardrick McKinney. That was a guy that some folks in the comments had mentioned as well as somebody they liked for the Browns at 43. The Browns picking 51. They acquire another fourth rounder that gives them 3, and they acquire a sixth rounder as well. They had 8 picks coming into today. They add to that now. And again, watch those fourth rounders. See if they maybe try and make a move up into the third round. The fact that Ray Farmer traded out of 43, what does that tell you?
It tells me that there are a number of guys still on the board that he likes. And he wants more assets to either use for himself, fourth rounders, use those, take a flyer on a quarterback, maybe something along those lines, or he wants as many assets as possible to move around. And if there's a guy that he loves the way that there was last year with Terrence West, the running back, then now he has the ammunition to try and make that kind of deal. Second round, third round, fourth round, that's really the meat of the draft. And so many GMs can separate themselves in the middle portions of the draft. And now he's got some assets. If he finds a guy that he loves, he can move up and he can go get him.
The Browns also gave up a seventh round pick. It was number 229. They get pick number 116, that's in the fourth round, and pick number 195, that's the sixth rounder, along with number 51, which is coming up shortly. So the Browns give up 2 picks, and they end up getting, of course, one of those picks back, and then 2 additional picks as well in the fourth and the sixth. So.
Right, and let's just look at this.
Again, let's keep an eye on what they do with those fourth rounders.
Sure, and I mean, also think about this. So hypothetically, if they're thinking inside linebacker, there's a chance that they have McKinney, who just went to Houston, Eric Kendricks, the inside linebacker from UCLA, and the other inside linebacker from Miami, Denzel Perryman. There's a chance that they have all those guys ranked similarly. And they feel like maybe one of those is still going to be available at number 51. Or if we're talking pass rusher, there's a chance that they have Harold and Kakaha and Orchard, all of those guys ranked similarly. If there was somebody that the Browns felt like was head and shoulders above, somebody that they absolutely had to have, then they probably wouldn't have made this slot. But I just think it goes to show that Farmer has similar grades for a lot of different guys at the moment.
Phil in the comments, I don't know if this is actually Ray Farmer, he says that receivers don't win games. Quarterbacks and lines do.
Okay.
Well, the Browns are working on the lines. Still have that pesky quarterback situation. Of course, that's something maybe we can get into a little later here as well, what the Browns' current quarterback situation is, and if it's safe to say that we're to the point where it's going to be what it is, or if there's still a move to be made out there. We will see what they do. On the clock right now, the Saints sitting at number 44, and they took your guy. I'll let you say it.
Who'd they take?
Go ahead. You know the name.
I don't know. There's a bunch of guys with weird names.
There you go.
Did they take Owa?
They did.
They took Owa Odigizua?
Oh, nope. Sorry, I misread it. Nope.
Who'd they take? I can't see that. Is that Kakaha?
Yes.
Okay.
Kakaha.
Right. So they took the outside linebacker.
It's like music.
Played at Washington with Danny Shelton, the NCAA sack leader. There's a lot of production there. You're talking about a first-team All-American. There are some medical questions, as we said. The knee injury might have scared some teams off. 4.940 during the pre-draft process might have scared some teams off. But, hey, New Orleans, Dan, they need to get after the quarterback. I thought they were going to contemplate an outside linebacker, a pass rusher like Randy Gregory in round 1. They had a chance to get him here in the second round. They pass up on him, and they get a guy who is relentless, somebody who understands how to get to the quarterback, and somebody who is very, very productive. Man, that's 3 guys from Washington now, right?
Yeah.
That's a team that didn't win a lot of games, though. They got some talent, obviously. 3 guys in the top 44. Why didn't you win more, Washington? What's going on?
I can't even explain it. What they always say, college football and pro football are very different games. Let's go with that explanation.
And they also say that you probably have to have a quarterback. Name me right now,
yeah.
who was Washington's quarterback? Yep.
Not Danny Shelton.
Yeah, that's right. It certainly wasn't Shaq Thompson. It wasn't Danny Shelton, and it wasn't Kakaha.
All right, we move on now to the Minnesota Vikings. They have the next pick in the draft. As our coverage continues of the second and third rounds, they took Trey Waynes, the corner out of Michigan State, yesterday with the 11th pick. They have your quarterback.
Yes.
What are they doing?
I think they're going to go with either an offensive tackle to protect Teddy Bridgewater, but more than likely it's going to be a linebacker. They need somebody in the middle of that defense. We talked about it last night. You've got to be strong up the middle. Center, quarterback, running back on defense, defensive tackle, linebacker, somebody in the back end. They have Harrison Smith already in the back end. They might want to contemplate a defensive tackle possibly, but I think a linebacker is a huge weakness for the Minnesota Vikings, and you just had McKinney go off the board, so there are only really two left that are worthy of second-round picks. You've got Perriman, who's worthy of a second-round pick, and you've got Kendricks. Kendricks, the best coverage linebacker, worthy of a second-round pick. So I think it's going to be one of those two guys, or at least it should be.
All right, so we will see what the Vikings have in store, and then as we look ahead, again, we're creeping towards the Browns, the 49ers, the Dolphins, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Bills, and then it will be the Browns. Eric Kendricks, the pick for Minnesota out of UCLA, the linebacker, 6 foot, 232, one of the guys you just talked about.
Smart, heady player. Doesn't have the physical tools that you look for, but he could be the leader of that defense. He could be a captain of that defense. And think about some of the teams that they have to play against. You have to play against the Lions. You have to play against the Green Bay Packers. You have to play against the Chicago Bears. You better have somebody that can cover some of those tight ends, some of those running backs coming out of the backfield, maybe at times a slot wide receiver. This guy covers like he's a cornerback, but he plays linebacker.
It sounds like the Eagles wanted to move into that spot, but Kendricks was too good for the Vikings.
Wouldn't that be amazing if they had both Kendricks?
Because
they have Michael Kendricks already,
true.
The Eagles do. They've been trying to trade him. He was part of that package reportedly for the Tennessee Titans, but that would have been something.
Philadelphia, though, has moved up. They're going to take Miami's spot in the second round, 47th overall. So Chip Kelly finally gets to make some actual headlines in this draft. So we'll go 49ers now, who are on the clock, and then it's going to go to the Eagles. They get that pick from the Dolphins at number 47. So we're seeing teams move up, with the exception of the Browns. Again, like you said, Ray Farmer must just have a handful of guys that he doesn't care who he ends up with as long as he gets one of them.
Right, and for the Eagles, I'm looking at two guys here. I'm looking at Eric Rowe, the safety/cornerback from Utah, somebody who's got unique coverage skills. Philadelphia has made an improvement in their secondary this offseason. They went out and they brought in two different guys from the Seattle Seahawks, but they were also 31st against the pass last year. Rowe, he can be a move safety, somebody who can just float in the middle of the field, or he can play a little bit of cornerback. So he's somebody that would make sense. He's also somebody, Dan, that the Eagles spent a lot of time with in the pre-draft process. The other guy, they could take Jalen Strong, and I know they went with Nelson Aguilar in the first round yesterday, but he's that speedy guy. He's the quick, shifty guy. And the Eagles have lost Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin in the last couple of years. Strong gives them a bigger-bodied target out there on the outside.
And back to our guy Roberto, he's pointing out that this might actually work out for the Browns because Eli Harold and Max Williams and Jake Fisher, Randy Gregory, Jalen Strong, they're all still out there, at least for now.
I'd be furious if they took a lineman. I understand what he's saying about Jake Fisher, but I mean, do you have to have every single lineman spot taken up by a first or a second round pick?
Maybe.
That seems a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, you've already got, so let's see, you got Joe Thomas.
First rounder.
You got
Bitonio.
Alex Mack.
Okay, first rounder.
Joel Bitonio.
Yeah, second rounder.
Mitchell Schwartz.
Second rounder.
Now you've got Cam Irving.
First rounder.
So now John Greco, the guy who wasn't, is just kind of floating around out there. He's your utility guy. That's a lot of high picks used on offensive linemen. I'll give the Browns credit, though. No matter the regime, they've been able to nail that position.
They have. That's true, with the exception of Mitchell Schwartz.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right about that. But, I mean, come on. We're talking about 3 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks for guys that don't score touchdowns. Are you going to pass to them? Are you going to bring in Jake Fisher and turn him back from an offensive tackle to a tight end? I got to have somebody who can score touchdowns here, Dan, or I got to have a pass rusher.
Randy Gregory's still sitting out there.
I don't see it. Man, that would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Keeps getting passed up. I don't know.
Would you do it?
I know this kind of goes against what I said with Green Beckham, but I would think about it again just because, like we talked about, I think the leadership in that locker room is defense heavy. I would think about it.
Not to mention, you're at a different point in the draft here.
Yeah, now you're
going to be
down
drafted
to
at 51. Yeah.
You're not sitting at 43. I would consider it. Again, like I said, I know I said no to Green Beckham, but I don't know. I would think about Randy Gregory in this spot. What about you?
Man, I'm so torn on this one. To me, Dan, he's a top 10 player. Nope, I can't do it. I think he's got issues that might not be able to be controlled. And I just haven't seen the evidence of change. I've got to see evidence of some change. I got to see some evidence of maturity, growth. And I have not seen that with him. I'll let some other team in the NFL take the gamble on his talent.
Yeah, that's one of those things where if you do let him pass, you kind of have a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Right.
Because you can say, look, maybe he goes somewhere, maybe he becomes a Pro Bowl or whatever it is. You can say, yeah, I know we passed on that guy, but there were really good reasons for it. Good for him for getting right and doing what he needed to do. But you can make that pass without really having a ton of regrets.
You're right. What are the odds right now that Philadelphia is thinking Jake Fisher? Chip's like, give me Oregon guys. All Oregon guys, please. That would be something.
Could be. Bucky Brooks tweeting, Mike Zimmer is building a pretty impressive D with the Vikings. Kendricks is another instinctive player with a knack for getting around the football.
Right. Sometimes, you just look at a guy and you're like, ooh, I don't know. He doesn't have that great size. Or he doesn't have those great measurables. He doesn't have the 4.5, 4.6 speed. And then you just watch him play and you're like, wait a minute, this dude's always around the football. In the passing game, in the running game. Some guys simply make plays, and he's the kind of guy that makes plays.
The Jets, this comes from, here's a tweet. So the Jets go defensive end and wide receiver in first 2 rounds. Sound familiar? They've drafted defense in first round and offense in second round for the 4th straight year. Little trend for the Jets there with what they've done in this draft. The pick for the 49ers is being announced right now. And then the Eagles, who traded up to make their pick, will make the selection as well. And then it's going to go Chargers, Chiefs, Bills, and then the Cleveland Browns will be on the clock. So we will see what happens there. And it is Jaquiski Tart.
They
That's
went
your pick.
Jaquiski Tart?
Yes.
This early in the second round? Wow. I know the 49ers need some help in the secondary. I thought Eric Rowe probably would have made more sense for them. But, hey, look, it's not a great draft for safeties, and it's kind of which flavor do you want? And Tarski is a 4.5 guy in the 40-yard dash. He's about 6'2", 221 pounds, and you've got a guy here who's going to, I would think, help out the San Francisco 49ers, Dan, as they try and rebuild that defense. They had 2 guys retire, Patrick Willis and Chris Borland. They took Eric Reed a couple of years ago, the safety, and now they need somebody else, obviously in the back end of that secondary, because that secondary was starting to get weaker and weaker and weaker.
All right, so now we move on. Philadelphia, Chip Kelly. Let's see what he's got in mind. They went wide receiver yesterday. I know it was a guy you really liked. So now they have this pick that they traded up for. There was talk that maybe they were moving up for number 45. They couldn't get there, so they move up to number 47. So Chip Kelly's got somebody in mind, somebody that he wants here at this spot.
Doesn't he always?
Who it is. Yeah, of course. Chip Kelly just kind of is living in his own world. like you've talked about, if he's going to end up going back to the college game, he's going to do it on his own terms. He's going to fail in the NFL on his own terms.
Safety, defensive end, cornerback, offensive lineman, those are all things that the Eagles could use a boost with. And again, I just think given the way that secondary struggled last year, even though they added 2 new cornerbacks, you still need more help there. 2 cornerbacks is not going to fix all of the issues that they showed last year when they finished 31 against the pass.
All right, so the Eagles making their selection. Eric Rowe, cornerback out of Utah, 6'1", 205, and we move on to the Chargers. Eric Rowe.
Eric Rowe is that guy that I said that I thought the Steelers were potentially going to trade up for because, as I mentioned, you get the versatility, you get the coverage ability. He's the new age kind of safety, and a lot of teams are looking for a guy who can cover more so than help you out stopping the run, fly around the football. So you've got a guy here, 6'1", 205, 4'4", 540, spent 3 years at safety. Last year, he made the move out of necessity to cornerback. He played well in his first 3 years at safety. He played well last year at cornerback. So this gives Chip Kelly a few different options. He'll probably play cornerback in a nickel set, maybe safety in other sets. It's the kind of guy that Philadelphia absolutely has to have in the secondary.
Moving on to 48, what are the Chargers thinking?
I would think that it's got to be an offensive lineman here. They drafted Melvin Gordon in the first round, 15 overall. They traded up for him. Now it's time to open up some holes for him. Also, it's time to protect Phillip Rivers a little bit better. He's one of the better guys at standing in the pocket, climbing the pocket, delivering in the face of a rush. But at the same time, Dan, every single center that they put out there on the field last year got hurt. So offensive line needs to be something that the Chargers focus on more and more and more. They plucked away Orlando Franklin from the Denver Broncos. He could probably play some tackle, more suited to guard. So I would say offensive line for the San Diego Chargers. They could also go with a defensive tackle. I thought they were a team in the first round. If the Browns, Dan, would have passed on Danny Shelton at number 12, I thought the Chargers would have made some sense for Danny Shelton. They were one of the worst teams against the run last year. And there is a guy that I do like, Jordan Phillips, the defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. He's somebody who has dealt with some back issues, but he's that run plugger. You just put him there in the middle of the defensive line. He's going to take on blocks, strong, stout at the point of attack. And the San Diego Chargers are pretty weak in the front seven.
If you're scoring at home, Eric Rowe is the 9th Pac-12 player drafted by the Eagles in the Chip Kelly era.
I love it. It's amazing because you think about what Nelson Aguilar did to Chip Kelly. Nelson Aguilar was a freshman when Chip Kelly was still at Oregon. Aguilar has 6 catches, 120 yards or something like that, and a touchdown. And Chip's like, okay, I'm going to put that guy on my radar. And then Chip Kelly has seen all of these guys up close and personal, and he's like, hey, I've seen all these guys make plays after me or against me. I'm going to put them on my team, and they're going to make plays against the other team now.
All right, if you're like a wide receiver, okay, and you're going to compare yourself to somebody, you've just been drafted, you're feeling good about yourself, you're going to compare yourself to somebody, you're going to play at least a little low-key, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Sure.
Yeah, Jim Wyatt tweets that DGB considers himself a Calvin Johnson type player.
Well, you know what they say. If you're going to do it, Dan, do it big. Why not? Whatever. You had a guy.
You just went in this. Look, I know he's not a second-round talent. He's a first-round talent. Could have been the best, might have been the best receiver in this draft if everything were normal and equal. But you just went in the second round. Oh, yeah, I'm Calvin Johnson. That's kind of the type of receiver I am.
Well, again, if you're going to do it, Dan, do it big. Why not? You had a guy.
You know what? He might be right.
He might be.
I don't know.
He's built like him. I don't think he moves like him. Calvin Johnson coming out of Georgia Tech was a 4.3 40 guy. My goodness. Athletic freak.
He thinks he's the best receiver in the NFL draft. He could be right about that.
Well, what do you
and
want
he's
him to
shooting
say
for 10
there?
touchdowns as a rookie.
Think about that, Dan. What do you want him to say?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's probably a safe answer there, but again, that's a question. What are you going to answer? If you're speaking of wide receivers, of course, Devontae Parker, some people in the comments talking about this as well. She is happy that her son did not end up in Cleveland. She says, quote, "They don't have a team really or a quarterback. I knew I didn't want the Cleveland Browns."
Okay, then.
Well, she is paying attention to the quarterback situation, at least. She's done
Mom
some
knows her
research
football.
there. Yeah.
Gotta give Mom that.
She could get a job here, probably.
Oh, my goodness.
Covering the Cleveland Browns. So we still await for Randy Gregory. The San Diego Chargers are on the clock, pick number 48. Then it'll go Chiefs, Bills, and then the Browns. The Dolphins at 52, they got that pick from the Eagles. Again, we're just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen in front of the Browns and who's going to be available because, again, it is still kind of shaking out in the Browns' favor right now.
It really is, because the inside linebacker, at least one of them, is still there. In Perriman from Miami, I know the Browns did some work on him. And then the pass rusher. That's something that has been a need for this team for a number of years. Yes, you've got Paul Kruger, but you also lost your ball Sheard.
Yeah.
So you got to have somebody who can fly off the edge, and Barkevious Mingo remains a big wild card. Are they going to stick with Mingo? Are they going to try and develop him? Are they going to hope that his shoulder injury is something that improves and then he can reach his potential when he was a top 10 pick? But you just have to have that threat flying off the edge, and the Browns really don't have that. A lot of the pressure from the Browns is going to be up the middle with Shelton and Desmond Bryant, and maybe even Armani Bryant. Paul Kruger, he can loop towards the middle as well. So Eli Harold, with that athleticism, with that burst, with the pass rushing moves, he's still on the board if Ray Farmer wants to go that direction, and then Nate Orchard.
The Chargers go with Denzel Perryman, inside linebacker from Miami, 5'11", 236 pounds. So that is the pick for the Chargers. And now we move on to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Could go wide receiver here with Kansas City. They brought in Jeremy Maclin in the offseason, Dan, but they took Marcus Peters, the talented but troubled cornerback, in the first round. I thought that was a very good pick. I think he's got top 5 talent. If he didn't get booted from his team, and yeah, he got booted from his team, that's how much of a knucklehead he is. But if he didn't, he probably would have been a top 10, top 5 pick because he does have that much ability. Wide receiver might be a direction here for Kansas City. They need somebody with more size out there to replace Dwayne Bowe. Maclin is quick, he's shifty, he's a big play guy. Strong at 6'3" could be that complementary piece.
It's weird to hear that. Somebody to replace Dwayne Bowe.
I know, right?
How about somebody that can get in the end zone? Because Dwayne Bowe did not do that last year for the
Nobody
Kansas City
did
Chiefs.
for Kansas City.
That's true. They that team was a big letdown, obviously, from the year before. They got out to that great start in 2013, and then it was all downhill from there for Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. Still a dangerous football team, but you got to wonder, can they kind of turn around what's happened to them over the last, they started 9-0 that year, and then it just fell apart.
Yeah.
So a lot of questions about that team, the Chiefs, the Bills, and then the Browns,
the good news is
50 and 51.
From the Browns' standpoint, a team that moved back already here in the second round, if it is pass rusher, because again, go back to what Ray Farmer has said and what Mike Patton has said, you got to run the football, you've got to stop the run, and you've got to get after the quarterback. That's the philosophy here. They did 2 of the 3 in the first round. What's the third one? The third one is the pass rusher, obviously. Kansas City doesn't need a pass rusher, so you're okay to be sitting behind the Kansas City Chiefs. And Buffalo doesn't need a pass rusher either, because they've got Mario Williams and they've got Jerry Hughes. So you drop behind 2 teams that don't have a need for a pass rusher.
Eagles Insider tweets, Eric Rowe was a guy Philadelphia wanted all along at defensive back, per Chip Kelly. The Eagles will throw Rowe in the mix with the other DBs. Obviously, Kelly was trying to move up. That's the guy that he wanted. Randy Gregory, still really the story. Where is he going to end up? A quote from him, "I have problems, issues I'm taking care of." hopefully he'll take some responsibility for what's happened. That's what we talked about with Josh Gordon as well. He kept getting in trouble and kind of kept blaming other people.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a good experience for a guy like Randy Gregory to kind of see what this has done to him professionally and what it's done to his pocketbook as well, because he's going to make a lot less money than he would have.
Well, you can go one of two ways with this. You can have a guy play with a big chip on his shoulder, or he can be like, you know what? Forget this. And he can hang his head, and he can be all disappointed and focus more on where he was drafted. We've seen that before. Guys go in round 2, round 3, and they're just like, oh, man, and they can't recover from it.
Yeah. A guy, obviously, that's been an intriguing story. Lyle Collins has not really handled, him and his agents have not really handled the situation that he's dealing with very well. Obviously, it's an extreme situation.
Yes.
But as far as the draft itself is concerned, their first move was trying to get removed from the draft, which didn't happen. Try to enter the supplemental draft. And then today, it came out that he would maybe consider, it was reported, he would consider not signing a contract in the NFL. If he went, I believe it was after the 3rd round was the report. So that's kind of a situation where a guy, and again, it's a very difficult personal situation that he finds himself in. But as far as the draft is concerned, he certainly is not doing himself any favors.
Yeah, well, the other problem is for Collins, Bub, you don't make the rules. So it's nice that you think, hey, you know what, I'm just going to enter another draft. That's against the rules. You are in this draft. You are in the 2015 draft. You can't just pick and choose which draft you're going to go to. You already hired an agent and all of those things. So it's got to be frustrating for him, especially because, Dan, he's not a suspect. He's not a suspect.
Yeah.
He's just somebody that the police want to talk to in connection with this. He doesn't have a lot of baggage. He doesn't have a checkered past. And you got to think that he's sitting there saying, I could have been a first-round pick with all the offensive linemen that were taken.
A lot of people
last night.
had the Browns looking at possibly taking him.
I mean, you feel for the kid, you do, but it's so hard when you don't know all of the details. And teams, we've seen this in the NFL, Dan, more and more and more, they're going to be more cautious. Look, there's evidence here with Randy Gregory still on the board. Dorial Green-Beckham went in the 2nd round. Shane Ray fell all the way to number 23. So it seems like, based on some of the things that have happened with Ray Rice and Aaron Hernandez, teams want to err on the side of caution.
So we await Kansas City's pick. It actually just came in. Mitch Morse, the guard out of Missouri.
Well, they needed an offensive lineman. I thought they needed a tackle or a center, but they want to run the ball. That's their philosophy.
Yep.
Just like the Browns, they want to run the ball. Kansas City wants to run the ball. When you've got a quarterback like Alex Smith, it's important to limit his responsibilities. So now this guy should help open up some running lanes for Jamal Charles so that he can continue to be one of the best running backs in the NFL. That's what they want to do there in Kansas City.
All right, we're coming up on it, so we're going to take a real quick break so we can spend lots of time on the Browns pick at number 51. The Buffalo Bills are on the clock. We will be back momentarily.